Well, good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Bill.
We are talking this morning about lots of things, and you have been to the beach.
I've been to the beach. I've been to a place where the slums, the housing in the slums, starts at about $1 million.
Wow. I take it you didn't buy it.
I didn't buy anything. I hardly had the nerve to look, you know.
So let's talk about data and that sort of thing, and obviously it's supply and demand, right?
Well, you know, a lot of people now are starting to focus on the data to try and understand what's going on in the housing.
I'm talking about those houses at $1 million with slums on the beach.
That's for sure.
It's just supply and demand, right?
Yeah,
people want to be on the beach.
A lot of demand, very little supply. The whole island I was on is only 8 square miles, so it's pretty tiny, but it's beautiful, and a lot of people want to be there.
That's awesome.
A lot of old guys like us with some very young wives.
Speak for yourselves, okay?
Anyway, one of the things that's been coming up recently about data, trying to understand what's behind a lot of the pricing and what's behind the housing market, is trying to understand what's going on with the supply and demand and the amount of data. And there's just not very good data. You know, you would think in the housing market, big industry like that in the U.S., it would just be overwhelmingly amounts of data.
Well, let's talk about structural problems that prevent the collection of data and what the industry has done to collect data. So let's back up and talk historically. When a mortgage was originated, really one of the things that the GSEs did is they standardized the forms, and the whole mindset was not data but forms.
Right.
Disclosure was around forms. When you got a mortgage, there was an act called the Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, RESPA, and it was all about the correct disclosure, specifically a HUD-1 form, not HUD-1 data,
Right.
but a HUD-1 form. And then there was the Truth in Lending, or TILA, which was all about disclosure on a form.
Right.
So as an industry, we grew up with forms. That mortgage package was originated on forms, and when you closed your loan, there was a limited data set that was transmitted to the investor. The originator kept a package of the documents, the servicer kept a package, and the custodian who maintained the wet note, the note with the original signature on it, and the other documents in the file, they had all the official documents, but there was no data.
Right. But you know, even at a high level, the number of transactions, the amounts of the transactions, you would think there would be some sort of collection of that data. But by and large, there's not. Some of the reading I did while I was letting my daughter run out on the beach was to.
You didn't run out on the beach?
Like a little bit.
Did you have a Speedo?
Of course, doesn't that? You know? But is a lot of speculation about how much housing inventory is there right now, how much shadow inventory is there. No one seems to really know, and you know, the realtors have been very, very unwilling to share their data. You know, they've kept that
outside of a local market.
Outside of a local market, but even there, it's not aggregated. You have information on the individual properties, but there's no aggregation of that data and standardization and accumulation of that data so that you can analyze it and try to figure out what's going on in that market. You know, how many houses are coming into the market, going out of the market.
Well, there's been okay, if we talk about the types of data. So first, let's talk about an industry-wide initiative. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have had several initiatives to get data around the entire loan, around the appraisal,
Right.
the uniform appraisal data set, along with the uniform collateral data portal, the delivery of the appraisal up to that portal, and then the delivery of the entire mortgage document in the uniform loan delivery data set. Mm-hmm. There have been several big initiatives to do that, and as a result, what we've had increased awareness of data, but to date, we've not had a lot of data in the industry.
You know, and our experience with the data too is that it's very difficult to match data points with an individual property. And one of the big initiatives that's going on, Mismos trying to do it, some of the private industries trying to do it, is to figure out a ID for a property so that you can unambiguously identify where that property is and the details around that property.
Well, some of the assessors have tried it with the assessor's parcel model, but it differs by geographic location.
And they constantly change it, and there's no uniformity in the way that they do it. The idea, everybody, the goal, that everybody's trying to achieve is to be able to go to a property and use characteristics of that property, geocode information, other types of information, to have it self-reveal what the number is, the ID number. So if you could, for example, get some information on the geocode, and from that information be able to identify what that property is, specifically, that would be the ultimate goal, but no one's been able to figure out how to do that yet.
Right, and there have been some other initiatives in terms of data sources. We've talked about the realtors with the MLS.
Right.
This is property data. For those listeners out there, we're sort of mixing and matching data on the property with data on the mortgage. When the mortgage is assimilated today, there's still no real definitive data on the mortgage. We've made some efforts toward that. For example, the major documents that contain data, the 1004, the appraisal's probably got half the data in the mortgage.
Right.
The 1003 has a lot of data, which is the application. The 1008, the underwriting form, has data, but there's some crossover. Some of those fields are the same. The name of the borrower.
Or at least they're supposed to.
Well, exactly. Well, but if we just had data, we could cross-check that,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
It would reduce fraud and errors and disclosure problems and all that. And then we get to the HUD 1 and the good faith estimate, the GFE form. Those have got errors and they change right up to closing.
Exactly. And it's unfortunate, but the lender, many of the lenders, MLSs, the government agencies, they all want to collect that data, but then they want to hold it close to themselves and not share that data.
Well, let's talk about the collection problem first and the sharing problem second. The collection problem, many lenders believe that data in their LOS is correct, and they warrant and rep to that data in the LOS.
Exactly.
It's amazing how wrong that data is.
We've seen as much as 50 or 60% of the loans have significant errors in those.
One of the big aggregators I was discussing this problem with, and the chief operating officer of this big aggregator said, I can tell you the error rate between the LOS and the closed loan data. It's not 50%, it's 100%. And it's amazing that people warrant and rep to that LOS data.
Right.
So that's the first problem. We have to get a cost-effective way to get data out of the closed loan documents. And so that's one area. And then compare and contrast that with the data in the LOS.
Yeah.
And the second issue has to do with the sharing of the information.
Right.
You want to talk about that a little bit?
Well, I mean, one of the things that FNC has done for many years is to try and get lenders to share the appraisal data, and many of them have. And
although it's a long and winding, arduous road.
It is. I mean, their first reaction is, no, this is our data and it's going to help us. But the truth is, most lenders don't have the resources or the time or actually the interest in collecting that data, processing that data, blending it with other data, creating a really usable data source. And so over time, most of the lenders have realized this and moved to sharing that data and allowed us to build a big database.
And they get lots of benefit out of that.
Oh, absolutely.
They get cross-sell opportunities right up front,
right.
So they know if a property is worth X and they've got Y loaned on it, that there is a Z home equity loan available for cross-sell at the point of the application.
Exactly. And so we just need to get out there and start doing some convincing.
Sounds like sales to me. Well, we're out of time this morning. Bob's tired. He's been on the beach and he's sun-drained. And so we need to wrap it up today. A little short. This is FNC's Morning View. I'm Bill Rayburn with Bob Dorsey. You all have a fantastic weekend.